right, so we just got all the wood delivery from Home Central in. He was really good at getting it into this barn. I mean, we have a lot of space, but it was still kind of persnickety. So Sandra and I are gonna have to restack all this, but we got some zip sheeting, so that's some waterproofing. We got some Hardybacker board, which is like a concrete board, which we're going to be applying micro cement to because we're gonna make this chicken coop like Fort Knox, fingers crossed. And then we got a bunch of southern yellow pine that we went to Home Central and we actually stacked it, picked it ourselves. So, you know, if there's a board that's like a banana, that's gonna be on us. But we have to restack it because chance would have it that we need to use all the bottom boards first.
The bottom ones first.
We need the bottom ones to rip them. So that's where we're at. All right, so we got all of the boards stacked. We think they're in the correct order. And the next step now is to take some of these and start ripping them because they didn't have the size that we needed in the species that we wanted. So they had white pine, fir, and spruce, which is great for interiors and not really for exteriors. So we went with the southern yellow pine. And some of them are 12 inches wide, so we're gonna be cutting those down to like 2x4s, which is awesome because it's just gonna be a higher quality board, even though it puts more work on our plates. So Matt set up everything over here, and we just have to let everything settle because we basically took up the ground and we want the posts to settle in the ground before we move anything else. But this is great because we could use this to measure our rafters and make sure that everything fits.
All right, I'll show you what we're doing here. I just finished cutting all these rafters. So essentially, it has just one 18-degree angle on this side, and then both these angled sides will meet, as you can see here, and they'll form like the roof. So these are rafters. So I also have them laid out here on a piece of plywood because I have my 2D drawing in the computer, and I put the dimensions on the plywood, and then I just lay out exactly where this goes. So you can see here, this pencil line here for this little support piece is right where it needs to be. And then you can see here, I have a line that follows this angle precisely, and then you can see that once these two join, it's a precise match. And then it's basically a way to guarantee that my angles are good, because cutting angles is really tricky sometimes. So basically, no waste. This was a 16-foot board, and I essentially made these as long as I could. They're 8 feet long, so I have like a little bit of waste on the ends. So that's what we're doing today. We're gonna join these together with pocket screws, if you're familiar with those. So I guess once these support pieces are cut, actually I'll show you how I cut these support pieces, because this is also kind of tricky to get the angle right. So one other trick I do is I make this little piece here out of thinner plywood, which is easier to cut. And then I slap a piece of wood on the end, so I could use it as like a speed square, like this. And then I have my track saw, which cuts along a track. And then I put this up against here. So if I want to cut this angle here, for example, I just slide it over, make sure it's all butted up against each other. And then I just run my saw across this, and then it cuts the right angle. And then I can do the same for the other side. So this 2x8 here is where we'll cut all these triangles out of. And then we'll join these together with pocket screws. So, and this is where Summer's gonna help me with at some point.
That's right.
This will go in here. And so we'll have to figure out the right dimensions. But you basically drill into this, and then you'll get this. And you could basically put screws in there like this, and it will bite into the rafters. So that's how we're securing everything. We got these blue versions of the pocket screw, which is for outdoor rated. And we'll also glue it. But, you know, having the two rafters like this at the end grain connected together is really not strong. You need something like that, like a support piece. I have the pocket screws here. So here's an example of what I did earlier. So there's 2 little screws in there, if you could see that. And then these are absolutely rock solid together. So I'm pretty confident that 4 screws in each side will keep this together, plus glue. So, and then this actually will be how the fascia goes on the rafter. So here at the end, we'll put 3 pocket screws, and that will grab the fascia board. So if you can imagine, this is your rafter coming down right here, and then the fascia sits right on the end of it. It will be angled down, which is kind of nice looking. But that way you won't have any fasteners that you see on this side. And we're also not like screwing something in here that goes into end grain, because end grain doesn't really hold well. So this is a way to hide it and to make it stronger. And as you can see with this is really strong. So
either that or you're really weak.
Or I'm really weak. I could probably break this if I really tried.
Oh, there you go. Oh, Sander just wanted to show us his manliness.
There you go.
Oh.
So you could break it, but you can see the screw is actually still attached. This is just a test piece, but I was curious to see how strong this actually was, but it's stronger than anything else I can come up with for this. So, and it's really great because if that fascia ever rots or needs to be replaced, you could technically just undo all these screws and put a new one on. So that's very appealing about this type of construction as well. I think the rafters will glue together, but something like the fascia board will just screw on there, and then if it ever needs to be replaced, you can do that easily.
Cool, let's get started.
Yes, let's cut some of these. good from the bottom here too. Yeah? Oh yeah. Probably my most favorite time on the property, where it's in the summer. You have temperatures going from, at night it's like 60, and then it goes to like 70 to 80 during the day. But that like temperature shift causes all this like fog in the hills, and it's really beautiful.
So
especially when you
beautiful.
fly a drone. It's just like this mysterious land with all the fog between you see all the hilltops coming out.
Yeah.
But this morning, we're gonna give you an update on where the chicken coop is, because I think we're about halfway. I mean, that's what I like to think. I got about almost a month of work into this thing to get to where we are. And it's probably gonna be another month, but I think the majority of the things are done. It's just that now we need to still do a lot of other things. So last time we were here, I think it was just a bunch of just wooden frames in the landscape to kind of get an idea of what it would look like. But now we actually have a structure here. And the first thing that happened is that Matt, our neighbor, came in with his equipment, dug a bunch of holes, and set all these posts for us, and also set all these headers. So this is 2 headers. I think one is 2 by 10, the other one is 2 by 8. And that's because we want to make some kind of framing that like fits in here, like the screen. We want to be able to staple back here. But he did a great job. I was measuring it the other day, and there's maybe an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch like difference like between the distances between these posts. Like it's really precise, which helps my brain a lot because I'm a really precise, detailed oriented person as well. So I'm really glad that most of this is straight and that there's very little error. So then once we had this big structure sitting here, there was no reason not to put the roof on. So we started working on the roof, because the roof is one of the bigger parts of this build. So Summer and I actually went into the wood shop and we created all these frames, and we kind of did it in a way where we made all these jigs to make repeatable cuts so that each of them would be the same. And then we prepared them all, we stained them, we glued them together so they'd be good and strong. And then we actually put them up here as well. That went quite fast, right?
Yeah, it did.
So, and then, once we put them up here, even though they're all cut the same, obviously they're not all gonna be super precise. So once I put the purlings on next, which are the beams that you could see that run the opposite of all the rafters here, there were still a little bit ups and downs in the roof. Like if you would look past the roof, you could still kind of see that some of them would go like this. So I spent quite a bit of time just shoving little shims in there to just kind of like using the level to make sure that that all is as straight as possible, because once the roof goes on, then that might translate to the roof. So you can still see a little bit of shim there, but yeah, I don't think you'll notice it at all. But this roof is pretty straight. So yeah, then we had Finger Lakes Metal come out, and they are one of the people who can actually provide like a standing seam roof. We wanted standing seam roof instead of just regular metal, because regular metal, we think, first of all, it looks a lot better to have standing seam roof.
Looks clean.
Plus, it's a better product. There's no water that's able to get in because all the fasteners are hidden. And with normal metal, after about 10 years, and we know because we have some of these barns that have the regular metal on it, after about 10 years, the washer on the screws, they kind of fail from all the expansion and contraction that happens when the metal heats up, and water's just getting in, and it starts rotting out the structure underneath, and we don't want that to happen. So we went with standing seam, and the guys from Finger Lakes Metal came out, put it on there for us in probably half a day.
The one guy.
One guy in half a day. He did
such
this roof, and he did that roof on the cabin over there. And I'd really like to be able to install it myself at some point too. And what's great about them is they're really open about showing you how to do standing seam metal, and they'll print out the panels for you, and then you can pick them up or have them delivered, or they'll print them right on site here, and then you can install them yourself if you want, save a bunch of money. So since I didn't know how to do it, we had them install it, but now that I've seen them install it, it's actually pretty easy to do. I think the system that they have is pretty unique as far as like other systems are more complicated to install. This is a bit more DIY friendly, if you will.
And we went with burnished slate,
Yeah,
which is actually more of a cocoa brown, but we really loved it with the other colors that we're using. It kind of looks very similar to this, which is like chocolatey gray.
Yeah, it's just a little more brown than this.
Which is good. You want it a little darker, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it was the same, it would be kind of
strange.
It would be kind of strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see like, even I tried to like make all the fasteners are hidden. Like I basically pocket screwed. Pocket screws are the hero of this whole project. Now you won't be able to see it from this side because it's only this side, which is the side that you'd mostly walk up to. So you can see there's pocket screws here, and 3 of them reach into this fascia board. Now that provides us with no visual fasteners, but another thing I could do is that if this fascia board ever rots away in the future, I could just undo all those screws and just put a new one up, and we'll go from there. Now, this is all open, and I was actually wondering, can you install standing seam metal just directly on trusses, or do you need some kind of plywood underneath it? And they told me that with this type of metal, it's fine to just put it on trusses. And he was walking on this, like, without a denting. No problem. So, and usually, another thing is usually people put like striations, you call them, in the panel, which is basically kind of a wavy pattern to prevent it from oil canning, they call it. So when the metal heats up, expands and contracts, sometimes it can show a little bit like dents and things. But even with him walking all over it, I don't necessarily see anything, like I don't see any dents or anything with the light either.
Yeah,
so.
And normally they would print the striations on it, and you have to ask for
you gotta specifically ask. They'll be like, "Are you crazy?"
But they
like,
do
no,
this.
We like the look.
They do this style like on sides of buildings. You know, they'll do a flat kind of almost board and batten look with metal.
Well, they're starting to have more and more products. Like we went out there to see the actual factory where they make the panels and where they bend most of their stuff. And there were entire barns there in the area that had board and batten metal siding, which you'd be like, whoa, that looks really straight. Like a wooden building is usually a little like curved, but metal is obviously super straight. And we walked up to it and we realized, oh, this is actually metal. So they make metal board and batten now too. So they're starting to come out with all kinds of interesting products. I can't remember what the gauge of this is, but it's a thinner gauge, but it's still strong enough. And over here, there's a COOP, there's a closed area, and we decided to insulate it. Not because we want to heat it, but because it will probably regulate the temperature a little better, where if it's a really hot day, it will probably be a little cooler in there. Or if it gets really, really cold, it will probably be a little warmer in here.
Yeah, and we found that out with the cabin that we have over there where the 4 birds are.
Yeah.
It, like, things don't really freeze, and that's a plus.
Well, that
mind.
cabin is better insulated than this thing will be because it has probably insulation underneath the concrete.
Right.
But still, like, just having insulation on its own, it's much more comfortable in there as far as temperature. The roof here is designed in a way, it's called monopoly framing. The way this is done, you see that black tape, that's kind of where the actual roof goes flat. So there's about 2 inches of space between the actual roof of this place and the metal. And then there's an air gap, kind of like what's here, a 2-inch air gap for air to get in between that and go up. So this way, if the roof is in direct sunlight and it gets really, really hot, there's like an air space between the actual roof and the metal roof where air can just escape, all the heat can escape, and it doesn't really it doesn't really heat up this roof as much inside the coop. And it's called monopoly framing. I think I first learned about that at Matt Reisinger's YouTube channel, and he builds a lot of his own houses that way because he can control like the air leakage and also the waterproofness of the building. He can control that way because you could see that zip tape is coming directly from the roof over to the side, and then it will be a continuous sealed building basically. So that's the detail there.
And we got to reuse all of these insulation panels too.
Yeah, so I had to put the insulation in because some of the wall framing had to go like in front of it, and the foam is so rigid you can't really get it like in there, so I had to put the foam in first and then the framing. And we had all this like 2-inch foam left.
It was getting destroyed by...
And it was getting eaten by the mice and the raccoons and whatever. So we decided, let's just get rid of it and use it in here. And it's great, it's EPS, it can't really rot. And
we had more than enough, and it was great that we didn't have to spend that money on it.
yeah, and this is 4 inches of insulation.
Wow.
So that's probably like an R20,
It's
close
pretty
to
good
R20,
for
somewhere around
chickens.
that. That's pretty good for a chicken coop.
Yeah.
But you know, you could potentially, I guess you potentially could heat this place too in the future. Not that you want to, because the chickens don't like a heated space, but.
I just messed the floor up a little bit.
Oh my god. Speaking of the floor,
Yeah.
the next thing we had done is Matt, our neighbor, came back, and his specialty is really concrete. So we had him pour this slab, and it's perfect. Like, it's really flat. It's really nice and consistent, and I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, we sold.
I don't think I could have done a better job than.
We sold my dad on this too because my dad needs concrete
yeah.
done, and
So
I
your
was like,
dad's
look
driveway
at this.
is looking sharp probably right now.
Yeah, no, he's gonna get it done later this month. So.
Okay.
Yeah, this is great because do you want to tell him why we wanted concrete here?
Well, concrete is great because it just provides such a good, like, level, place to build off of. It won't rot. There's a bunch of stone underneath here. It's like elevated a little bit, so water doesn't really mess with it.
And predators.
And it's predators. Like, what's gonna dig through 4 inches of concrete? That will hopefully help with predator proofing. Once I started framing these walls, another thing that I did is I put a ton of sealant between the pressure treated joists and the floor. There's this little piece of foam that also goes between it. And I put a bunch of sealant, and then I sucked it tight to the concrete with these blue Tapcon screws. And that's gonna really prevent, like, you can see a little bit of it here actually. Hopefully that's gonna prevent things like ants and all kinds of little tiny bugs from crawling through here and be able to get in to the coop. I mean, they're obviously probably coming in through a door or through a window, but at least they're not gonna sit here and eat up some of the framing. So yeah, then I started to frame this place up, and the way it's done, it's kind of a weird setup here. I tried something different where my posts are 5.5, and I made my walls 4.5. So that leaves an inch, and that inch is gonna be made up by a 1/2 inch sheeting on the outside and then 1/2 inch sheeting on the inside. And then once those sheets are on, they're gonna be flush with the posts. So the wall is kind of the same thickness as the posts, which is not necessarily, I don't know if it's gonna be a good idea yet or not. But as you can see, it's kind of indented here. So the zip sheets that I'm gonna use for the outside of the wall here are gonna sit kind of flush on the end with this beam here. And they're also gonna sit flush with the concrete here, which is gonna make it easy for me to finish and seal the gap between the sheets and the concrete here.
Yeah, and then you tape it,
And
right?
then I use the tape, the black tape up there to just cover this, and then this will act as like my zip sheet or outside of the building. And then what we're not, like the reason I try to do it this way is because it's easy to just keep adding layers on the outside. And at some point, you're gonna have a run that looks very skinny because it's just framing the posts. And then you're gonna have this coop that's really bulked out because it's got siding on it. It's like plywood, like it's got extra,
Poop on steroids.
you know, board and batten, which will be like 1.5 inches thick. So hopefully this prevents that kind of thickness on the outside, because at some point you start to get into your overhangs are not gonna be enough either.
Yeah, and kind of where you're standing now, this will eventually be the inside wall of another building. Wanna
Yeah,
explain
so
that?
hopefully we'll be able to build a cabin here at some point. And then because we have such a grade
Quite
here,
a drop off.
it's quite a drop off, but we're using the drop off to put the building like 1 foot or 2 foot lower, probably just 1 foot. We'll probably put it 1 foot lower than this building so that you don't notice the drop off as much or the grade. But yeah, this wall will be an interior wall at some point. And also, what I already did is I already framed kind of where a window would go here. So I think from here to here and here to here, in the future, we could renovate this. I could cut this wall open, and then I can cut these studs out, and I can just take the insulation out, because here we'll use something like Roxol, which is easy to take out. And then we can make our own window and throw it in here, and then you can see the birds from inside the cabin, which would be kind of fun.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. Now, is this framing going to be taken out too? Or?
Yeah, so you see these cross braces here, and once I started framing these walls, what I noticed is that the whole coop was kind of like leaning a little bit this way. Like, I'm talking maybe like 1/4 or like 1/8 of an inch. It's very little. All right, here's what I'm at today. Yesterday, I spent all day straightening the structure and framing what you see here. I had to straighten this just a little bit because it was maybe like 1/4 inch like that way, and it's because there wasn't any diagonal bracing, so the whole structure kind of leaned that way. But what I did is I wrapped a come along tool from this point to this point, and I tightened it, causing this to move that way, and therefore straightening the structure. Like all these posts had the same kind of lean. So once I did that, I put this cross brace on there, and that held it in place. And then I did the same over here from this top point down there. Basically squeezed that, and that's caused the structure to lean that way. And it straightened everything, which is great. So then over here you can see this will be the door. It's 36-inch wide door. And when you get in, you'll have a window here on the top to your left, so you can see this nice view. And there will be a window here directly in front of the door. And there will be kind of like a desk area here with the feeder, so you can feed the birds, feeding tubes. Nest boxes will be right here. And there will be a little storage closet underneath, including storage closets in the corner there. To the right here will be the roost bars. And there will be another window up there that I still have to frame. But that way you have a view of the forest and the nice oak tree that we have here. Because like there's no triangles in this building. Usually when you have a triangle in a building, it's really strong, it's really rigid. But if something's just square, it can shear a lot. So what I did is I hooked up you can still see a block here. I put like a strap around this, and another one here at the bottom. And then I made a cross here, and I started ratcheting the come along, and it basically shortens this distance here, and it forces the structure to go from over-exaggeratedly this straight back up. And the whole structure was doing this. So, you know, if it was only that part over there, then this part would be then out of plumb. But since the whole structure was doing that, I decided let's just get it back into plumb. And then once I did that, I slapped those cross braces on there, and that kind of kept it in place so it wouldn't go back to its original position. Now, once the sheathing goes on, like the plywood will actually act as that cross brace. So once the sheathing goes on there, I can take those off, and then hopefully the building is kind of locked in. Because if you don't have a lot of triangles, like you can see here, I tried to put a couple triangles in to make sure that this wouldn't like start to warp and deform over time.
You could probably leave those in, right? If you wanted to.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think. Yeah, you could. The chickens will probably jump on this.
Oh, that's true. They like to sit up on there and poop on your head then.
I mean, we can always add more triangles to it, but I don't think you have to, because once that, like 1/3 of the building is kind of locked in and it can't move anywhere, then it should keep the rest in the same place. Because once I started to adjust this, I thought I had to do it on this side too, but because the whole building is already kind of tied together, everything just went this way. So it's always a little scary to do it, because how many pounds, like that thing is rated for 2,000 pounds. So then, you know, how much weight are you pulling?
Yeah.
And you're pulling on the whole structure. So, but luckily it worked out, and I was really amazed.
I just want to interject for a second because, you know, Sandra hasn't been working on this completely for a month. Like, we've been kind of distracted with like trips and everything like that. But when Matt set these posts, we had quite a lot of rain, which was great because it takes a while for these posts to set and for all the soil that you disturb to settle. And so that we let that sit for probably a good like few weeks.
And it was very rainy.
Yeah.
Now the way he did it was he doesn't have like a big auger or anything to drill a big hole. So he actually excavated quite a big chunk out. Like I would say like a 2 foot by 2 foot hole. And he got to like undisturbed soil, which is where you want to set your posts on. And he threw a big like concrete paver in there to kind of spread out the weight. And then he put a post on top of it. And then he like used cross braces to really make sure it's straight. And he did a good job.
And these are pressure treated as well.
Yeah, these are pressure treated posts.
Good for like 50 years or whatnot.
But yeah, then once you backfill, all the soil's kind of loose. And then after the winter, when everything thaws, it just like becomes a sinkhole.
Yeah.
So he built up a bunch of soil, and all that kind of flattened out.
And these go 4 feet down.
Yes. And then once he did that, once that was kind of settled, then he actually flattened the entire area and graded this a bit better. He left this kind of low because the idea is that you can actually bring in your own soil or a spermacenic air and start building this up a little bit. You know, throw compost in here, the chickens can mess around.
Leaf matter, whatever.
Yeah, leaf matter. So they can build up their own kind of forest floor for about 2 inches. And that would be nice, I think. And then it's gonna help us because we have to put beams in here as the floor. Basically, we don't have concrete here, so we're gonna put a long beam similar to this in order to put our frames on. And that's gonna sit on something. So we'll put a little bit of gravel here, put that beam on it, and then we can have a predator guard go out, which we'll talk about. Before I put sheets on and before I put insulation in, I ran all the electric and all the low voltage stuff for infrared lights and for cameras. So what I've done is basically we found some 2-inch pipe at the reuse center. I mean, reuse center is always great for little projects like this because you need a little bit of 2-inch pipe.
Yeah, you need
and
offcuts.
you'll probably find something there that can work. So, you know, obviously it's not that expensive to go get it new, but it's just funny to like, in your head, you're just like, oh, I need some 2-inch pipe. And then you go to the reuse center on your weekly trip and then you just happen to find it there and you pick it up for
Yeah,
like
he
$1.
manifests it all the
It's
time.
almost like you manifest it, which is funny. But what these pipes allow me to do is they actually allow me to come in, like there will be a utility shed here with electric and water, and it allows me to run all the cables. You can see here all the cables. This is our main electric. There's only one electric circuit in this whole building because there's not a lot of switches and lights and whatever and outlets. So this goes up into the header here, which you can kind of tell here. I'm gonna leave this accessible. So I'm gonna put a board basically over here, a wooden plank, and that way I can unscrew it and then I can get to these wires, and I can also mount things on it like a camera or a light. So once they come up here, they go all in their own way. This is the electrical circuit. It goes all the way over here. Then it splits off to the roof in there, the ceiling. It goes all the way to that light switch that's hanging there. And so we have power at the switch. And then another cable goes back up and it goes to 2 lights that are in the ceiling there. Yeah, they're kind of mounted to this. This is the last one I still have to put in. But in order to kind of hide like some of the vent and some of the wires that are up there, I came up with this. I drilled a hole in it for the lights. But this sits up against the ceiling and it's kind of like a nice decorative piece that sits there. But then the circuit also continues straight here and it goes to an outlet in the run. And that's GFI protected so that if water ever splashes in it, it will trip a breaker and it won't set anything on fire. Then on the inside here, we'll have 2 outlets. And then it goes up here and it'll have another outlet on the outside here. And then it goes over here to the light switch. And then from here, it goes to the ceiling to have another light in here so that when you come into the door, you can turn on the light and there'll be a light.
That'd be great.
And then we also have low voltage circuits, which are for security cameras and for IR lights, infrared lights. So you can see we're gonna have a camera sitting here that's gonna allow you to see the birds when they're sleeping at night. You could see the nest box and you could see them coming in and out. And you can see the door as well. And then we're gonna have another camera all the way at the end here on this wall that kind of looks down here and you can see the whole entire run here. And another thing that we are doing is we're putting these infrared lights. So cameras have built-in infrared lights for at night. And what I find is that it creates a little bit of heat. So there's a lot of insects that like to hover around it. And then spiders find that really opportunistic to go there and to make a web. But then the problem is their web is really reflective if it's right in front of the camera, so you can't see anything and you constantly get motion alerts. So what we do is we turn off the infrared lights and we install a separate infrared light here. So I picked up these little infrared lights and basically we're gonna have the camera here and then just like we're lighting a film set, we're gonna have a key light over here in this corner that creates, you know, the light, and it will also make everything less flat. So when you look at your security footage at night, it has more dimension to it because the shadows are coming. Like you can actually see better versus having a spotlight right against everything you're looking at. So that's what this is for. Low voltage goes right here and then goes back to the utility closet and gets plugged in there. So yeah, now that the electric is all done, the next stage is gonna be putting the zip sheets on the outside. And then I can insulate it. And then we're gonna put concrete board on the inside, kind of like what you use for showers. And then we're gonna seal all those joints. And then, once those are sealed, I'm gonna take this product we use, micro cement, and put a thin layer of micro cement. It's like a decorative color layer. It's gonna be kind of like grayish, beige.
It's the same thing as our hood vent in the Meadow House.
I've used it a couple times now.
Which Sonder, handmade himself.
But this whole room will be micro cement. It will basically be like a giant concrete bathtub.
That's basically for cleanliness and health purposes, so that you don't get mites in the wood or anything like that. So where they're going to be roosting is going to be easily cleanable.
Yeah.
We could come in here with like a power washer or something if we get all the...
If you had to, you could take a pressure washer and like completely clean it out here, because the concrete will also be sealed, and that way it prevents it from soaking up any water. And all the joints, like here, for example, we're not gonna need any baseboard, because it's gonna be a continuous layer up the wall, so that no water gets in between the wall and things like that. So it's gonna be really easy to clean, hopefully. And you're not gonna leave that here in here as a floor. You're gonna put a Sanicare, a Spoma product in here,
Right.
that, you know, provides like a soft material for the chickens to walk
And
on,
it's
and
very
it makes it
easy to clean. Yeah, it's like cleaning kitty litter. It's amazing. And it doesn't get dusty either because it's hardwood.
So then after that, we have to put in the windows and doors. So we're gonna make windows and doors. You can see there's a nice window here. Nest boxes will be under here. This will also be part of what we need to make for windows and doors. Another window over there, and then one over here. The door we're gonna pick up at Lowe's, and it's the cheapest, best door you can find. It's the one with the 6 lights and the kind of board and batten look on the front.
Craftsman look.
Craftsman look. And we really like that door, and we're gonna base the rest of the windows and doors on that to make it kind of part of the same family.
We have that for the meadow house, and we really like it.
It's a great door, also for the big barn. And so the windows that will be in the door are gonna line up and match exactly the window lights on this window and this window. So it will be very
Uniform.
You know, feels like it's a part of the same family. And then we'll have to do trim. So once the windows are in here, we'll have to figure out how to close the gap here. I was thinking just using wood, but given that wood can introduce like mites and stuff like that, it might not be a good idea, although we'll stain it too and finish it. So it will probably just be wood. And yeah, once that's done, the inside should be pretty. Then we'll need to make some furniture here. So instead of putting the roost bars like right into the wall, I think it's better in our situation to just make pieces of furniture that you can kind of set in here and that's standing on its own, so that you can always rearrange the space if you need to. You can always take, like, so we'll have roost bars here, but they won't be permanently fixed to the walls. So that when you take them down or you replace them, it's not like there's a huge gouge in the wall and you can't really fix it. So I think everything should be kind of furniture based. That way you can clean it easily. You could take it out maybe. You could take it apart. So it allows you to stay flexible.
And are we on track, Sonder, with like the cost? We're
Are
projecting.
we on track and on schedule?
We're
Summer?
like projecting that it was going to be somewhere between 15 and 20. I think that's
Yeah.
still the case at this
I
stage.
think we're aiming to be under 20, and I think we're definitely under 20, but there's still some expenses that need to be made. Like the cameras, for example. I know all the camera equipment. There's 4 cameras total for inside the building and outside the building, and that will be close to like $1,000. So those things will go really fast. But then there's also things like insulation.
Insulation.
Insulation is like, we just purchased 3 bags of insulation for $300, but we probably won't use all of that because there's not that much wall space. So it's also a little bit of like, you know, and this foam is basically free because we had it already. We need to get rid of it. So we're definitely going to make it under 20, but there's still some big purchases coming up. But it's better than, you know, obviously it's a lot of time that you have to spend building it. But it's a better price than what you could probably find out there.
And we actually piggybacked things. We were smart about it. We needed concrete done in the common
Yeah.
house, which we're also co-renovating. And so we just had Matt, and he came and did both at once, which was
Yeah.
more cost effective.
So there's just not enough concrete here to come and send out a truck, because there's like a 4-yard minimum, I believe, on a truck. But this concrete pad here might not even, it may be close to 2 yards. I don't know how much exactly is in here. But we had to pour a bunch of other things. We had to pour the floor in the house and some pads outside. And we decided to just combine everything because then it would be cheaper. You could just get one truck, do everything at once, instead of doing each of these projects individually. And the same we did with the roof. Instead of just doing the roof here, it doesn't really make sense unless you start to combine it with another roof, so it actually becomes worth it to come out here and actually install it. So,
And that's the benefit of actually renovating multiple buildings at once. You know, in one sense, you feel like defeated because you're getting distracted and it takes a long time, but you're actually getting work done and actually probably more efficiently so that you don't have to pay for the 4 yards of concrete and then trash it later.
It's a bit of a planning nightmare, and it's multitasking, which is not great if you want to get something really done. But I still think, given that it really helps that this project is quite small. This is a quite small building. Like, it's not like I'm framing up a house. It's like literally 4 walls.
It's a chicken house.
It's a chicken house. So, that helps a lot with it. Well, then once the trim is in, then we basically have this green little box on the outside with the zip sheets. We're going to have to put some siding on it. So we ordered the siding already, the wood, and that's drying now in the barn. And then once that's dry, we'll have to stain it. And then it's going to be just board and batten. So we'll just put the boards up, put the battens up, cut around the windows, and then that should be done. And then we'll need to make the screens for over there in the run.
And we're using hardware cloth, which is not chicken wire. Hardware cloth is very small, like either 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, so that
don't use chicken wire.
Don't use chicken wire.
Hardware cloth is recommended, and we're taking a lot of inspiration from Carolina COOPs, which is in North Carolina, and they've been building chicken coops for years, and they figured out a lot of, they figured out a lot of things already. So why reinvent the wheel? We're gonna take what really works from them, and they also have some products like the water bar. Like, we're gonna install a water bar here. That's basically one of their products. So we just purchased that from them instead of having to reinvent that ourselves. And we're just taking some of their methods and trying to improve a little bit on it. And like, for example, the water barrel has a heater in it. Usually, I think when they build a coop, they leave that outside. But we're gonna try to insulate it so that it stays warmer for longer. The heater doesn't have to kick in as much. But they may actually also insulate it in some other projects that they're doing, so who knows. But we're trying to understand why they're doing certain things and how they're doing it, and then implementing it in our own design here. So yeah, the hardware cloth is another thing that it's 19 gauge black hardware cloth, and you basically staple it onto a frame, and then you have 2 2x4s, and you basically sandwich the hardware cloth between the 2 2x4s, and that should keep it in there quite good. But supposedly nothing comes through there. But we will still put an electric fence around this, because it's like bears or raccoons, they'll just keep messing with shit until they find a way in. So if we can scare them,
or even groundhogs that will
dig
around the foundation of the building, and then other animals could get in that way.
Yeah, so we're not just using that as a screen here. We're also going to keep having it going out on the floor, so that when something starts digging here, it's going to run into a metal mesh that it can't dig past. So that will be another. So then that also brings me to just predator proofing in general. There's one other channel that I really like to watch on YouTube, and it's called Twin Home Experts. And these guys absolutely know, they figure out how to prevent mice, rats from getting into structures. And another thing that since we've designed this building ourselves, what I've really paid attention to is making sure that there's absolutely no leftover voids anywhere where a mouse can hang out or sit, or, so I'll show you an example. For here, there's a little air gap, but there's nothing that can get in here, or there's no, usually people box out a header and there's a little air gap in between, and mice like to hang out in there. One area that I still have to cover is right here. On the side of this, you could see there's an open gap. So a mice could climb up here, get into the coop that way. So I'm gonna put 1.5 inches of wood between the purlings in order to close that off at the end. And that way, if we seal up the entire structure, another reason that the standing seam metal is good is because the underside of it is completely flat. Whereas the underside of metal that's on a regular barn has enough like spaces where mice can crawl through the actual ribs of the metal. So hopefully by the end of this building, this whole thing is sealed tight and there's no room for any predators to get in.
And we'll do a whole separate video just on predator proofing this space afterwards.
Okay. So now we'll have to put the zip sheets on, and we're also actually preparing the side panels right now. That's something that Summer's gonna help with. And yeah, so once everything is done as well, like the electrician, like we have electricians at our main house right now, because I'd rather have them actually hook up all the light switches, because you know, making the electrical connections, they're gonna be 3 times faster at doing that than me, and they'll make sure it's like properly done as well.
That's great, and we'll to be continued. This is just like a midway update, as Sonder said. And hopefully sometime in September, we'll be seeing this done. We have a road trip coming up to get you more great videos out of the Finger Lakes region. But after that, we're gonna be back at work here. See you in the next video.